Hello, and thank you for joining us tonight. We begin with the Trump administration's efforts to bring Ukraine's President Zelenskyy and Russia's Vladimir Putin together. The goal, reaching a peace deal. But even amidst the diplomatic push for a resolution, the relentless bombing continued against Ukraine. Overnight, Russian forces launched the largest attack in weeks, striking energy facilities in eastern Ukraine. According to Ukraine's Air Force, that included 270 drones as well as 10 missiles. And today, the White House confirmed that during his conversation with President Trump, Putin agreed to a bilateral meeting with President Zelenskyy.
Following the encouraging conversations yesterday, President Trump spoke with President Putin by phone, and he agreed to begin the next phase of the peace process, a meeting between President Putin and President Zelenskyy, which would be followed, if necessary, by a trilateral meeting between President Putin, President Zelenskyy, and President Trump.
CBS News has also learned that the Hungarian capital, Budapest, is among the locations being considered for the potential meeting there between those two leaders. It follows a phone call between Trump and Putin, where the Russian leader proposed that the meeting be held in Moscow. However, it is believed that Zelenskyy would be unwilling to travel there. Meanwhile, as the National Guard continues to patrol the nation's capital, the Justice Department has launched an investigation into whether D.C. police manipulated data to make crime rates seem lower. And residents along the East Coast, they are bracing for the impact of Hurricane Erin. Mandatory evacuations are underway right now on North Carolina's Outer Banks, while strong rip currents have forced the closure of beaches in New York and as far north as New York, and I should say also Maryland. CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi joins us now with the latest from D.C. And Olivia, what more is the White House saying about this potential face-to-face meeting between Zelenskyy and Putin? Is there a timeline for this?
Well, Nancy, the White House is now saying that after those productive talks yesterday and a phone call between President Trump and President Putin, it now seems that both sides are willing to have a bilateral meeting. But the outstanding question here really is when. I asked President Zelenskyy yesterday, do they have a date? He said no date. We have now finally agreed to meeting just the two of them, President Putin and President Zelenskyy, and potentially President Trump if they deem it necessary to have him there for a trilateral meeting. And as you mentioned, one of the places that is being discussed is Budapest, Hungary. We can now report that. It's interesting because there was a 1994 memorandum signed there with Ukraine and Russia, with the U.S. and the United Kingdom as witness, that actually was kind of the precipice to all of this. It agreed that if Ukraine gives up their nuclear weapons, they would have sovereignty. So interesting part there if they do choose Budapest, Hungary. We also know that Vladimir Putin had suggested Moscow, which was a non-starter for Ukrainian President Zelenskyy. President Macron of France suggested potentially Switzerland as also a place. So we are watching to see if there's any development on a date, time, and who could potentially be at what would certainly be a groundbreaking summit.
Yeah, a lot of incremental steps there. And Olivia, and one of the biggest takeaways that we've seen from these talks so far has been the Trump administration saying that they will provide security guarantees for Ukraine, a big point right there. Is there any more clarity on what exactly that would look like?
Well, we're learning drips and drabs, particularly related to the conversations Trump had yesterday with those European leaders. The outstanding question yesterday would there be U.S. troops as part of a potential peacekeeping force on the ground in Ukraine? President Trump answered that today during an interview in Fox and Friends, where he told them that is not going to happen. That is not something they are considering, but they could potentially consider air support. That could look like a variety of things. It could look like air cover for Ukrainian troops or European troops that are on the ground. It could also be reconnaissance aircraft that doesn't necessarily have to be in Ukrainian airspace, can be nearby, but provide intelligence on the ground for those Ukrainian forces. So there's a lot that could be at play. It also could mean potentially more weapons for Ukraine, air defense, intelligence gathering. These are all things that are potentially being discussed as ways to give those added security benefits to Ukraine as they try to end this war.
And plenty more to come on all of this. Olivia Rinaldi, thanks so much.